All right. Thank you so much for joining our second session. I hope that you just watched our section on the ACT webinar series, which was what the ACT is. So I went in depth and explained exactly what you can expect to see on the ACT, a few resources that you can use going forward there. And now we're going to move on to the ACT, how to prepare.
Hey, so my name's Brady Gaither, and I'm going to be talking about how to prepare for the ACT. I do work at the University of West Alabama and admissions counselor for several different counties in the state of Alabama and a couple over in Mississippi. So I appreciate you guys joining in today. And so what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to talk about how to prepare for the ACT, and we're going to kind of dive into the nuts and bolts of that. So the first thing, if everybody can see my screen, the first thing we're going to cover, and we're just going to kind of recap some of this stuff. So we're going to look at what are we going to learn in this session. We're going to learn free ACT preparation resources, study tips, and how to increase your test performance. So real quick, just to recap on what happened in the last video, we covered what is the ACT. It's an American college test that is standardized, and it is meant to be looked at by colleges for scholarships, admissions, and several other things like that. And so basically you go in and you take the test, and we look at it to see if your scores align with our college requirements. And then we go from there as far as awarding scholarships, different things like that. So it's a pretty important test for the next 2 years of your life. And so going on, it says, when is the ACT? The ACT is offered up to 6 times per year, although the number of annual tests will vary by testing locations. The ACT test dates always fall on a Saturday. And just to note, they are offered on other days for people who have religious conflicts on Saturdays. And so we're going to look real quick. Right here is just the times and dates of those tests. So as you see, June, July, September, October, December, February, April, June, and July, there are all test dates available in those months. And then you see off to the side the registration deadlines, late registration deadlines, and estimated score releases. So that's when your score will be released, and you'll be able to see what happened. Again, the ACT is used for your admissions, your scholarships, and class placement. So we use that class placement to make sure that you're getting into the proper classes, to make sure that you're the most successful in your college journey and moving on into the real world. So what is a good test score? The average ACT score is in 2021 was a 20.7. 36 is the highest score. Alabama has an average score of 18.9. A good score depends on which school you're considering. If you're considering a much larger school with a much more in-depth acceptance requirements, your ACT is going to be required to be a little bigger. That's going to be more like your medical schools, your law schools, different things like that. And then for your schools where you go and then you transfer out to some of those medical schools, law schools, they do accept a lower test score. But generally speaking, that 18.9 going into a 19, that is the magic number that most schools are looking for the ACT. Moving forward, what is the ACT format? You have English, mathematics, reading, and science. There's 75 questions with your English, 60 for your math. Reading, you have 40 questions, and science, you also have 40 questions. You can look off to the side and you can see the time frames that those different sections are required to be done in. And then you also have the optional writing portion of the ACT. Some schools require that, some schools do not. And it is one essay prompt, and you have 40 minutes to take that. So now we're going to dive in real quick to being successful on the ACT, what it's going to require of you, some things you need to have on your mind as you start to study for the ACT. One thing to keep in mind, you need to keep calm and carry on. On test day, you need to stay very relaxed I know a lot of people have test anxiety. I'm one of those people that get test anxiety. And so you have to remember, you have to continue to tell yourself throughout the ACT, this is just a test. It's just a test. It's just a test. I'm going to do my best. And at the end of the day, when you've done all you can do, it's all you can do. Don't come in like a zombie. Make sure that you get plenty of sleep the night before and the days leading up. Don't hang out with your friends till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning every night and then try to catch up on your sleep that Friday night and go to bed at 9, because you need to get yourself in a routine of going to sleep early. That way on that Friday night before the test, you can actually go to sleep at a decent hour. When you wake up, make sure that you get a rich protein breakfast, and again, get some good night's sleep before. Stay positive throughout the test. Again, just continue to tell yourself, it's just a test. It's just a test. We're going to get through this. It's not as big of a deal as some people make it out to be in their minds with that test anxiety. Practice, practice, practice. Always practice. Shaw mentioned in the last session that you need to start studying several months before. And here's the reality. When you start at the beginning, if you start 3 months out before you have to take the ACT, the expectation, or what we really promote, is for our students to take the ACT multiple times. At the University of West Alabama right now, we do accept super score. And so the more times that you take the test, the more times, the better your score is going to get, because we take the sub-scores of all the different categories and combine them together. And so when you start practicing several months out for your first test, by the time that you take your second or third test, you have a lot of time that has been put into studying for the test. So it makes it a lot less, I guess the word would be daunting. It's a lot less daunting of a process, or a lot less daunting of a thought to have to sit down and practice if you can get yourself in a routine for the test. Also on test day, it makes you a lot more confident in yourself and in your abilities going into the test. The next thing is when you guess, so there's going to be sections and there's going to be questions that you're not going to know the answer to. Your mind's just going to go blank, and that's okay, because there is a way that you can guess intelligently, and we're going to get further into that as we move along. But just keep in mind, when you're taking a guess, your teachers always tell you, make an educated guess. I'm telling you, make an educated guess. So on that day, make sure that you do that. Don't mark up the test booklet. That's just something to note. And then don't just sit there and get all anxious and all of that stuff. Shake it out. Don't get stagnant. Don't just get all tense. Stretch, do all those things. Make sure you're awake before you go into the test. And then during your breaks for the test, make sure that you're stretching, waking yourself up, because like we've mentioned before, it is a little bit lengthy of a test. Moving on, how to think about the ACT. In order to do the best you can, you need to work on the 4 main areas: your content, your endurance, testing strategies, and time management. All those things are very important key components of doing well on the test. If you don't know, basic math content, strategies, and endurance are not going to matter as much. So when you're practicing, making sure that you do understand the content and what's going on. Build your endurance so that you can sit comfortably taking a test for 3 or 4 hours. And you can do that by, in your studying time, making sure that you set an alarm or set a timer for yourself, that you have to sit there and you make yourself sit there for 40 or 50 minutes, practicing math problems, reading short stories, reading content, going into the science, making sure that you're just looking over science questions, and make sure that you sit down and build yourself up. Start off at 10 minutes, get up, take a break, go sit back down and do it again for 20 minutes. And over time, within that 3-month, 4-month period of starting to begin to prepare for the ACT, you'll find it a lot easier to sit there for 40 plus minutes at a time without a break in order to build that endurance. Know the strategies well enough to use them during the test without having to think about them too much. So again, understanding your math strategies, understanding the way that equations work, different things like that. Know your content. And finally, pace yourself to make sure that you can complete the entire test. So if you get stuck on a problem, please skip over that problem and come back to it. Don't get bogged down on that you don't know. Again, that's where some of that anxiety will fluster up during the test. So if you get to a place where you don't know the answer, skip over it, move on to the next one, and continue taking your test, come back to it at the end. How to think about the ACT. Skills will be developed, but developing them means that, again, you have to practice. Practice is necessary. So content knowledge plus strategy plus endurance plus accuracy divided by speed equals a high ACT score. And we're going to break that down, again, more as we go along. So how do I prepare for the ACT? Understand the ACT format is critical. So make sure that at the end of this, we're going to have some resources and places that you can go to study for the ACT. And it's some really good study formats, and it's a lot like the ACT. So when you go in, make sure that you are actually paying attention to how the test is laid out, understanding the times that and how much time you are given to take the test, so that, again, we're talking a lot about anxiety, but making sure that that anxiety doesn't come up when you get there on test day and it's like, okay, I only have 45 minutes. Take as much practice tests as possible. Again, we're going to have some resources at the end for you guys. Take advantage of online resources, and then review what you remember from previous standardized tests. Go back, think about, ask your teachers on some of the things, ask them about the standards that they're teaching. There's a reason that your teachers are teaching the standards that they are, and that's because they are on standardized tests. So make sure that you ask them, review them online, and again, try to pull as much information from those resources as you can to make sure that you are studying the right material, because there's nothing like going into a test and then sitting there going, I studied all this, but none of that's on here. And so we don't want that for you guys. So make sure you do that. Do not cram. Shaw mentioned that in the last session. He don't cram, don't cram, because it is not going to work at all. And so we're just going to leave that alone. Set aside the designated time to review and study. This is really important because a lot of kids that we talk to, y'all have a lot of extracurricular activities. You have sports, you have friends, you have relationships, you have family functions, you have all of those different things going on, and you're trying to juggle all that on top of school. And so the best thing to do is go ahead and just tell yourself 2 or 3 months out, 4 months out, however you decide to do that, tell yourself, okay, every day after school, since I'm already in school mode, I'm going to go home, I'm going to get a sandwich, I'm going to eat, I'm going to chill out for a minute. Don't turn the video games on, don't go outside, don't do any of that stuff. Take you a little break and then start studying, because your brain's already in study mode, or it's already in school mode. So go ahead and do that. Like I said, it doesn't matter really what time of day. That's just my suggestion while you're already in it and have been in it. Go ahead and set you a time apart to start studying and reviewing. It don't have to be all night. I understand you guys have homework. So again, it's all about building your endurance, starting from 10 minutes and building up to that 40 minutes, the 60 minutes, and so on and so forth. How much should you study? So some professionals recommend practicing almost every day for several weeks before the test, while others recommend taking a certain number of practice tests. In the end, it is all up to you. The ACT prep materials to become familiar with use the ACT prep materials to become familiar with the exam format. And then one point is it may call for an extra 10 hours of study, while 6 to 9 points may require more than 150 hours of additional study. So keep that in mind. that last little point there as crucial, again, to adding those extra points to your ACT score for those of you that are trying to use that score to be admitted to college. And it really matters on your scholarships. Scholarships are where those extra little points can mean a lot of money in the long run. So how much should you study? Again, these two things are clear. Be consistent, and then as well as don't cram for the ACT. Spend time analyzing everything that you do and make notes. Make notes about what the format looks like. Make notes on what you don't understand, what you do understand, what you don't need to spend as much time going back and reviewing. Because again, as we go on, you're going to see that understanding new information is a lot easier, or it's a lot more easy to remember when your brain is in new information mode versus I already know this. The use process of elimination, we touched on this a little bit earlier. When you get in and you don't know the answer, again, part of time management, skip over that answer or skip over that question and move on to the next one and come back to it at the end. But there is a process of elimination that happens. Every multiple choice question on the ACT has 3 wrong answers and only 1 correct answer. Math questions have 4 wrong answers and only 1 correct answer. By looking for the wrong answer instead of the correct ones, you will often be left with just a few answer choices from which you can make an educated guess. So that's very important. Again, you're making the educated guess, and this is the first line of defense you have against not answering a question or not knowing a question, is making sure that you are going down and you're trying to figure out which answers don't match the question. And so you eliminate those and you try to get down to one answer that is the correct answer. But the goal when you're in the process of elimination is if you can just get down to 2 answers, you have a 50-50 chance of guessing the right answer as opposed to a 25% chance of guessing when you're just looking at it. So this is your first line of defense on answering every question on the test. Next is guess blindly. So if you are looking at it and you can't get down to your 50-50 chance, or you can't get down to your one possible answer that is correct, then you are left with a 25% chance. But the way to do that, the way to guess educatedly on that, is you just have to pick a spot for the day. So that means when you go in to the test, you say, okay, if I don't know the answer to these problems, if I come up upon something and I'm just not sure and I can't come down to a 50-50 chance, I'm going to pick a spot of the day. That's either, and so your best spots on the ACT to fill the bubbles in, because remember, we are trying to fill every bubble in. Don't ever leave a question unfilled in or unanswered. Regardless if you don't know it, you're definitely going to get it wrong if you don't answer it. So your best spots to pick from is B or G, and then your second spot is going to be C or H. So those are 2 spots. And when I say pick a spot, go ahead and say I'm either going to pick all B's and G's or I'm going to pick all C's and H's. And I say that because the more times that you answer with a B, if you answer B on everyone that you don't know, there's a lot more chance that you're going to get a lot more of those right instead of going, I'm going to go B here, C here, B here, C here. And we don't want that. We want to give you the best possible chance of getting that question right, even if you don't know it. So make sure that you pick a spot for the day. It maximizes your chances of getting some of those questions right. So as you move through the test, as you look at the test, you're gonna notice that there's things that you don't know, or there's going to be things that you're unsure of, even as you're studying. And so as you're going through it, give off or make notes when you're practicing taking these practice exams. Take note of the level of difficulty and order those, or put them in order from least difficult to most difficult, and go ahead and knock out or search through the test and find those questions that you have classified as less difficult and go ahead and answer those questions and come back to the more difficult answers at the end. It is better to skip around and answer the questions from easiest to hardest. Again, don't try to take the ACT from the first question to the 50th question in that order. Definitely skip around, because you're going to find that there's questions are not placed in there so that they're easiest to hardest. They're all over the place. And that is, again, to show your time management, your endurance, all of those things. This test is put together for those reasons. So we're moving on. Time management. Most students do not do well if they do not time manage. You're not allowed to use your cell phone during this test. So best practice is go ahead and plan on leaving your cell phone in the car that day, making sure that when you're practicing, you turn your cell phone off so that there's no distractions. Get in a quiet place also when you're testing, because the ACT is, when you go in to take it, it is a very quiet place. There's no talking, no moving around. The only thing you hear is the scratching of pencils on paper or the turning of pages. So make sure that you get rid of your cell phone during your practice time, unless you're using it as a timer. But what I would recommend is go ahead and go get you a stopwatch that you can wear on your wrist that does not make a sound, because if there's a sound made during the ACT is stopped and everybody in the room is interrupted, and then you will most likely be dismissed. So we don't want that to happen, because the ACT does cost money in most cases, and so we don't want you to waste your money on that day. So go ahead and get you a stopwatch, set your timer, look at the time, note your time, whichever way you decide to do that. That way you can make sure that you're staying within the parameters of that allotted time for the test. It also helps you on test day, because there may not be a clock in the room, so you need to be able to know how much time you have left to take the test so that you can go back and fill those answers in that you might possibly not know. Moving on with our resources, as promised, this is a page where we have several resources listed. I highly recommend that each and every one of you visit these sites, find the best practice site for you. There are several listed on the UWA website as well. ACT test prep page on the ACT format is a great place because it is going to be the most like the ACT. And any of these other ones are great. If you're a fan of Quizlet, there is the prepfactory.com. That's for you. It's more of a Quizlet-like format. There's also videos, lectures, tutorial videos on math equations, and also how to do reading portions of the ACT and different things like that. And then, of course, at the end, we have the COVID update guidelines for the ACT, and that is on the ACT website as well with that link. Again, this is what you're going to see. Once you download the ACT page, you can log in and you'll have a lot of resources there. And this is the Prep Factory. So once you've downloaded and submitted your information and gotten a login for ACT Test Prep, then you can go to the Prep Factory. This is where that Quizlet-like format is, and you'll be able to go in and take quizzes on each of the individual sections. And over on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see how much of the percentage that you've completed. And there's some other things inside of there that you guys may like to see as well. Get to College. So free to all students, and has numerous books, guides, videos, practice tests, and even a podcast. So this is a great website that you guys can visit that has a lot of other resources and different things like that. So please go check that out and make sure that you are pulling from all of these resources, because again, they're here for you guys to be successful. They mean nothing if you don't go visit them. UWA's ACT prep webpage is here. So you go to uwa.edu and then you can search ACT prep books, online practice tests, different things like that. And all of those resources will also pull up. There's also down at the bottom, you can see that Get to College website link there. And so you can click on that and visit those as well. So the last four, going into study tips, is the best learning happens when you think in detail about new material. So if you think back to what I was saying earlier, this process of thinking is detailed, the new information into what you already know, making it available to whenever you need it. There are a lot of ways to achieve this, but we think 3 are particularly effective: practice, teach, and reflect. And these 3 things will go far beyond taking the ACT. These are good study habits for anybody in elementary school, middle school, high school, even in college to the master's and doctoral levels. Practicing and then teaching is always a great thing because you have to know the material in order to teach it. And then you reflect on it, look at your notes, think about it throughout the day on how you can get better, how you can teach it better, how you can bring understanding to other people. And then the practice, that comes all before that, because again, you have to understand the material in order to teach it. Teaching helps you understand the material. It helps you find new ways to bring understanding to other people also. Our 4 tips show you how to use these methods every time you study. Again, it goes far beyond just the ACT. These are great study habits for anybody in any type of education. Space out your breaks. You should practice taking a break to let it sink in and then practice again. You also need to take frequent breaks. People most often are unable to focus on a task for more than 20 minutes, which means that you should stop frequently to recharge and refocus. So get up during your practicing, taking your practice tests, take you a break and go get you some water, go get you a Coke, maybe eat a little something, spend a little bit of time on Twitter, Instagram. Don't get caught in the black hole of watching videos, but take you a little break, call a friend, whatever, and come back to it. Make sure you turn your phone back off again and get back down in the books and keep studying. Do a lot and read a little. People who are the best at studying use the following techniques. First, they do a few questions, then they read the answer. If they got a question wrong, they study the answer closely. If they understand it, good. If you don't understand it, then read an explanation about how to answer the question. Once you understand the explanation, then start over. Do a few more questions, read the answer, and see if now you understand. Success in studying is about diving in and not reading a lot of stuff. So what we're saying is do several math questions, do several reading questions, do several science questions. Don't look at the answer to make sure that you're right. I know that that's a hard thing to do because we want to know right away if we were right or not. But do a couple, do 5 or 6, turn around, and then go back and look at the multiple choice. My advice is take a piece of paper and tape over it, cover it up, do whatever you got to do to not look at the multiple choice answers and just answer the question how you would normally answer it if those answers were not available to you and you were just going to have to turn them into a teacher, and see how you do. And then that way it brings about better understanding of where you are in the understanding of the material. And then you can turn around and answer the question, see if you can find your answer in the answers provided. And if you don't get the answer right, again, go back, look at it, watch a tutorial video on it. There's several different places that probably have the same questions, similar questions that will show you how to work the problem out, how to understand the problem, how to find the solution, and then try to learn from it. Again, once you do that, then go back and try to answer a couple more questions without looking at the answer, and continue that until you have a good understanding of the material. And then you can start focusing on your time management and different things like that. Again, we're building endurance. It's not endurance is automatically there. So make sure that when you first start off practicing for the ACT, you're taking your time, you're looking at things, you're understanding things, and you're asking plenty of questions. You're going to your teachers, as hard as that may seem sometimes. Go to them because they are there to help you to be as successful as possible in anything that you do in life. And that all starts by taking the ACT and getting into college. We're going to talk about real quick teaching others. I mentioned it earlier, and all we're going to do is the reason that we're teaching others because we practice. Now we're teaching. We understand the material in order to teach it. And again, it helps you bring about better understanding to yourself and to your peers. Here's the reality. Don't be scared to have study groups. Don't be scared to talk to people who are going to take the ACT. Get you a group of 4 or 5 people, and you guys just toss around who's going to teach that day. Maybe start a group for one day a week and just say we're going to meet one day a week as a group, and we're going to take turns teaching this to each other and just cover all 4 sections. Somebody can take a different section each time, however you decide to do that, and teach each other the material. Even if everybody in the room understands it, you may be the one that needs to teach it because you need better understanding. There's always the opportunity to learn. You're never too old to learn. You're never too young to learn. And so that's a great study habit. Again, in any type of education, from elementary all the way up to the doctoral level of college, teaching does teach you. So that is all I'm going to say about that. And then finally, reflect. Reflect on what you've learned, what you need to do better at. Once you get to about a week out from the ACT and the actual day that you're going in to take it, reflect on the things that you need to just kind of polish up, reflect on your time management, different things like that. Take a few minutes to summarize what you did and the specific things that you mastered, and that builds confidence. And it actually, you have something on paper that's showing you kind of where you started and where you're finishing going into that test. You can write a paragraph or 2, make a list, summarize each new technique that you've learned. This will not only help you to cement the knowledge, but also provide a nice reminder of things to review in the future study sessions. So again, you can do this every study session, after every study session, or you can do it in increments throughout your time studying. But again, don't wait till the last second. Don't cram, and take your time, but build that endurance to where you can sit down and respectfully and with a lot of courage take the ACT and do very well. And we all expect you to do well on the ACT because you have put in the time, you are putting in the time, and y'all guys are going to do great. So that's the end of this session. If you guys have any questions, you can feel free to call, text, or email myself or Shaw, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Our information is found on the UWA website. If you can't find it there, you can also call the University of West Alabama and ask for the admissions department, and we'll be glad to help you guys any way that we possibly can. I appreciate you guys tuning in, and until the next session, we are signing off. Thank you.